And then we are live, I think. Yeah, looks like it. Looks like it. Well, welcome to I lost track. The next episode of PK is on air.
The
Probably
first
the
episode.
the first November episode. Absolutely correct, and I think probably also the least prepared one, at least after the summer break. So our apologies in advance. It's going to be just a chat today with a bit of commentary around a couple of things that happened during November, I'd say. But what a month it has been, right?
Yep. So pretty close to Christmas, right? So busy.
Yep. Busy weeks and busy days. Yeah, I mean it's I mean we both have been doing I suppose agency work for quite a while, but I'd say this Q4 has it really coming. So it's special, and it's not just special because it's the Q4 madness. It's just it's insanity, but I think to an extent we enjoy insanity as well. So just the lack of sleep, I'm really looking like it. So, so well, anyhow, 2 more weeks, we will survive. I think it's the only way to get through it. Thanks for joining from wherever you're watching. We are on, as always, on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn as well, Twitter, Twitch. So please feel free to leave us comments and feedback. That is always very much appreciated. We will include it wherever it fits. Also, if you have missed, shame on you, one of the previous episodes, they are live on the PK's website. So pa.ag. Yeah, Dominique has some background noise going on there. It's going really well today. You see, we are extremely well prepared. So pa.ag/notes is where you can find the previous episodes, including last week I shared a bunch of slides. Dominique did prior to that kind of some content related talks and shared a bunch of stuff. So it's all in the notes section, I probably should say. Anyhow, since I already gave up on asking you about your progress on reading books, I think that's the bi-weekly reminder. I spare you with the answer, I would say. Maybe we manage sometime in Q1. I'm not saying which Q1, but we shall see.
Maybe after a longer holiday Christmas break.
Yeah, maybe after. We shall see how that goes. I wouldn't say I lost my hopes with you, but definitely watching if that's actually going to happen or not. Yeah, so it has been a busy couple of last weeks. I think not only business wise, which we of course are very thankful for, and also quite excited because we managed to win some really cool and exciting new accounts and clients alike, or brands that we really enjoy working with, but also from an organic side, there has been a bunch of changes going on. Really, there's been a lot of interesting content that has been created and or shared. So this is something that we can really poke around a bit today. One, I think, major news that only broke a couple of days ago is around Google's kind of revamp. I should probably say, of Search Console and the crawl statistics or crawl tab, or however you wanna call it. So I think that was one of the things that has been discussed really a lot within the tech SEO scene, or the tech SEO kind of sphere, I would say. I would say before we get into that, Dominique, you had also one interesting thing that you mentioned So we did some preparation, but not much, to be honest. In regards to the recent additions to the German search results, do you maybe want to quickly put it on the screen, or should I?
Do you mean like the health portal from
the health? Yeah.
Yeah. Just
If you wanna, yeah, sure. So I think I can't recall exactly which episode it was, but one of the very early episodes we kind of talked a bit about the change in the Google search results, and more specifically kind of addressing the left-hand navigation and some of the filters that have been introduced at the time when the pandemic broke out. And I think I also mentioned at that point in time that we actually have been seeing this left-hand navigation very, very, very long time ago. So it kind of felt like a bit of a relaunch. And I think we both were saying it's a quite good field test, so to speak, with like real world data, even though maybe for a not so nice occasion, but real world data. And we were kind of both saying that we wouldn't be surprised if it sticks. And there has been some recent changes that happened. So that is coming up now. Yeah, there we go. Cool.
Can you see that now?
Yeah, it's there. So you search from My Green, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the German side. I just checked on that again early this morning, because I think the German government launched it together, or in cooperation together with Google in September this year, when I'm not completely wrong. And I know that they had like massive technical issues at the very beginning, and then I saw that at the very beginning, especially for I just took the keyword like migraine, and that they used at the very beginning to be here in the end boxes, but now they switched over, at least, and I can only see it in my incognito version, to be honest. So not in
test group in Germany, yeah.
Exactly. So of course, in the mobile version, it looks completely different. And now I just checked on some keywords again. I think at the moment they index like 160 diseases on German, or in German, and have like the typical navigation, which we already saw in for the COVID topic, right? Yeah. Over here, like the overview about the disease we can see here, and also the symptoms, and also how what to do with some smaller answers here, and then of course the link over to the main, which I found quite interesting. And I saw that there were a lot of discussions during November on that topic, because I mean there were many people, of course, like media outlets were asking, okay, why do we need something like that, like a corporation from the government together with Google to show like information about like health diseases or whatever? At least some media outlets do, of course, like strong cooperations with like doctors and like with experts on that topic, right? So there were like a lot of discussions. I just checked on that on an SEO perspective, how they deal with that. I saw, I do not recall which website it was. It was a German site, of course. They checked just on page speed over there, how the website is performing at the moment. Looks quite good. So they did a good job during the last 2 months, of course. So they had some time to work on that one. And I was just wondering how that would evolve during the next month, because I'm not pretty sure what to think about it yet, to be honest.
It's really interesting. I like when you brought it up, I was like, I just rechecked on some of the stuff, because so I used to work, and we did as well, if you recall, like on a German site called NetDoctor, years and years and years ago, actually. I don't know, I can't even recall, but more than 5, probably even longer. Yeah. So back in the day, this is something that we had been seeing in the US, and the US had something. I just checked in the US, there's nothing there anymore. So I just checked for like broken bone fractures, and that was like one of the queries I used to run, and like also just used the English ones of what you were seeing in the German results. So it's entirely gone. So there's no knowledge graph box anymore in the US, which is interesting. because it worked kind of the same. And I recall I actually had it in one presentation, one that I did for like the client back in the day, but also one that I think used at one of the conferences, where I was showing a bit of the kind of evolvement of what was happening. Because at the time, the what you were just showing now with the navigational elements, that was new when I saw it years and years ago. So that was like, in the beginning, it was just the box, right? And you could just scroll and that's it. And then they started adding elements, and then also like internal site search and whatnot. So I think those were things that were quite interesting. And it's quite interesting that they actually removed it now from the well, not now, I don't know when, I didn't like check on the numbers, but like quite interesting that that kind of disappeared from the US search results, or English speaking, probably should say, right? Not the US ones, but yeah.
So I saw it in the UK in a very huge it was the nhs.uk. So the UK version of that one we saw now for Germany. So in the UK, it's pretty strong still, and they have like 1,200 diseases or something like that, with massive content, with rich media. So having a lot of like visual content there as well. I think for the German side, it's still the beginning. So I saw a small comparison between how the content is structured yet. So the comparison between like the German governmental health portal and sites like NetDoctor. So the content is still pretty short in comparison. So the governmental content is pretty short in comparison. I mean, longer content is not always better. We learned that and heard that like 1,000 times, I guess. But I think especially in the field of like health articles, it could be a good sign when the content is even longer, because those are pretty complex topics, right? There are so
clearly
questions to ask over there. So, but the good part is that the accessibility of those content pieces and landing pages and URLs is pretty good. So they did their homework in terms of like semantic headlines, proper content structure, and everything around that. They're still missing on a German side everything around rich media. So
I imagine also one of the differences really kind of comes from the fact that like they will all somewhat deliver this in a different format, right? So Google is somewhat aggregating it, and of course like trying to kind of normalize it in the way that in the best possible way, or in the way they can. But of course, like, even though it's like structured output, doesn't mean it's structured input, right? So if it's messy in, then it gets messy out, or it gets just smaller. But you're right. Like, I mean, I recall that the kind of the amount of content on the production side, that the likes of NetDoctor, or like in English-speaking environments, probably more like a WebMD or something, that's significant. In comparison to that, it's actually relatively small. So I also found that quite interesting. So if you just have dialed in, this is the next episode of PK's on there. I'm seeing like a lot of people just dialing in from Twitter, which is really nice. It doesn't seem to be dead yet. So feel free to leave your comments. We're always kind of happy to chat along. If not, the other thing that I kind of wanted to talk about are probably two things that I found. Well, actually, three things that I found quite interesting that also happened during November. And I'm just gonna quickly. That doesn't work with the switching of the sounds, right?
No, it really doesn't work. I'm so sorry.
No worries. It's fine.
I just switched it off, but
that's what you think.
Yeah.
Maybe not. There's another thing that. Why does it not look nice? This is not nice. How to fix it? There we go. I think now it's better. Yeah. So another thing that happened, Google started pushing more and more is like streaming those Webmaster Conference Lightning Talks, and there's a whole bunch of them, but one that I really found quite interesting is has been released early in November, actually, by Daniel Weisberg, who is mainly taking care of all things Search Console, I think you could probably say. And kind of he walked through a whole bunch of solutions and ways to kind of how to get rid of content, or how to remove content, also how to remove content fast. So it's a really good kind of guide if you're having any issues with that. He's outlining how they treat various things around different status codes and stuff like that. So that's really worth watching. And the other second, or probably the biggest, you could say, thing that happened in just recently, so like 24th is the date of the documentation for whatever reason came even a bit earlier than the release or the launch. But Google updated what's now called within Search Central, the search console, and revamped quite significantly the crawl stats report, which is part of Search Console. And I think it brings in kind of a variety of new features, because really, if you recall, the old one was fairly basic. It only had this kind of trend line of like URLs that had been crawled, and it didn't give you like any real level of detail, especially in comparison to like the tab that we now have with performance, where you can like drill down and filter. So one of the reports that has been launched when they revamped like the entire Search Console project, I think that was, well, I wouldn't say a thing to be ashamed of, but it was very limited in functionality, and obviously one of the old ones. But now that kind of changed, and it's funny. So if you have seen me speak at any of the conferences, I think one topic that I kind of obviously covered a couple of times in the past was around crawl budget. It was around log file analysis. This was around like search crawlers behavior, and a whole bunch of things around that. And there's always this discussion, which I find quite funny in a way, where like there's those two worlds saying, well, this is not relevant, it doesn't really matter. There's the ones that they're kind of like crazy about it, but a lot of people are just missing kind of the context, if that makes any sense, or the environment. So of course there is a value in understanding and then of course changing how search engine crawlers behave on your website. I mean, it would be weird if not, but of course that certainly the impact has to do with the size of the site, the scale of the operation in general, the amount of URLs you're dealing with, the severity of issues that you potentially are facing. And let's be honest, if it's a site that has 1,000 URLs, well, there's not much to gain from optimizing crawl budget. If you are dealing with a 7, 8, or 9 figures sized site, then that's a bit of a different story. And we have various cases from the past where we can actually show based on numbers that makes a difference, right? So the cool thing is, and you would only get this level of detail when you would be working with log files, because, well, the problem is with, as much as we enjoy all the crawling tools, and we really do, the issue is they are all like somewhat simulating behavior, right? It's they're trying to do what Googlebot is doing, and then some have made like huge leaps in the past. Write, for example, is one of them, where they kind of did a really nice integration with at least the performance data from Search Console, as well as, of course, like the GA data. So you kind of get a bit of a feeling, but again, it's not the real world. How does Googlebot actually crawl, and where are they maybe stuck and stuff like that. So for that, log files are really a gold mine, and still very much underused or underutilized either way. So in that regard, I really appreciate that Google kind of introduced or brought in a bit more transparency, where you now have like number of requests, you have response codes in the respective grouping. You can drill down by file type, which was something that was entirely intransparent. So, I mean, it's great if you have like a high or low or whatever crawl frequency, but if you don't even know, or when you don't even know what they are crawling there, what types they are kind of crawling more than others, that doesn't really help you that much, right? It's just one number with a chart, right? And also now there's kind of more examples, a bit more summary. So it's a really nice thing they did there. So what changed, and you might be familiar with this, is it looks similar to, I'm just going through the screenshots here from the Search Central, the announcement post. Like, this is kind of looking familiar to what you would see in the search performance thing, right? So you have this over time trends, and you can like select and filter. So this is nothing nothing really new. You can also kind of export it, so that's quite cool. You can group it. So this is, I think, at least a step into the right direction. I mean, still imagery or video can be then different things, but it gives you a broad idea of, you know, what's going on. And specifically, like if you compare HTML versus something crazy and like, I don't know, JavaScript, or even like maybe a lot of like JSON stuff going on, and if you would see, well, HTML is only 10%, then you would know that there's something seriously wrong, right? So you have that. You have some host name info, some stuff we've been seeing in the past as well. Like, so robots text availabilities, it's nothing really new, but still there. You have connectivity things. You have, and this is actually really cool. I'm not sure if people actually realize that. So this is a host name kind of view. And I think one of the things that we as SEOs have been trying to do in the past is like, well, the client said, well, we have this domain www.something.com, and you're like, but you also have like those 10 million different subdomains set up, and like half of them they have forgotten, the other half they don't even know that it exists. So I think from a discovery perspective, and also, and I think this is also quite interesting, the distribution of requests, right? So let's say you have 3 subdomains and your major content is on the www, and all of a sudden they mainly crawl like the other 2, and like the www only gets, I don't know, 5% or something. Then that's something that you can easily spot here. So this is, I think, this is really cool for a discovery of hosts that Google, for whatever reason, right, does know or still knows or still even interacts with. And also to kind of see distribution within your host, right? Because I think what I mentioned in one of the other talks in terms of crawl volume or also crawl budget allocation is that, of course, there's the limiting factor is the host name itself. So you get computing time being allocated to your host name, and then of course it's going to be distributed by subdomain. So I think this is actually a really powerful, yet very simple but really powerful addition to it. So that's quite cool. Yeah, of course, historical data. I mean, this is all understood. But yeah, so I think this is really, really nice, and I think a major addition actually to what Search Console has to offer. On a totally different note, because it's not in here, but there's one feature that I do enjoy a lot also at Bing. So Bing has webmaster tools as well, and there's a thing or a tool called the Bing Index Explorer, which already very, very few people for whatever reason know about. But it's also really cool to kind of understand and poke around a bit in the inventory. So, you know, what has Bing bot or like Bing in general being kind of, what URLs do they know? What have they been crawling in the past? Potentially, you know, what it's not working anymore. Where they're spending too much time on, etc. So I think this is really, really cool stuff, and really goes into the, well, I would say, direction that somewhat continues with Google and them being a bit more transparent, at least in the well, not in this, but in where they can. Let's put it that way. And I think it's certainly the right thing to do. I mean, at least for us from an SEO perspective, right? So I suppose you guys are using Search Console for, like, especially auditing a lot as well, right? Not so much the tech part, but obviously like search performance. I mean, that's a gold mine of data, right?
Sure, definitely. I mean, especially when we talk about like at the beginning of each project, right? So to get into or having a deeper look into what's going on at the moment, if it's like the technical side, of course, yeah, that's one part. But also when it's about like the content strategy on a longer run, right? So that's the starting point for everything we do, or it should at least be the starting point.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, so I just need to quickly switch screens.
Of course, additional data I just need to mention here. Sure.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, no, of course. I mean, that can't be the single source of data. Obviously, that's for sure. But I think the good thing is that it gives this kind of Google view, if that makes any sense, right? And this is something that you always kind of want as the backup. I would say.
Yeah.
Right. So another thing that happened in November, mid of November actually, was called the 5 hours of technical SEO, and with a really interesting lineup, I have to say, or like a really high-profile lineup. Also, a bunch of good friends being part of this marathon, and there were a whole bunch of topics, mainly technical SEO topics, being discussed. So we can go through that. Before we do that, quick shout out to Bartosz, whom I will be having the honor to kind of share stage, or virtual stage, I think I probably should say, at the SEJ Summit in early January, I think 12th, if I'm not totally mistaken. And we are currently in the preparation of kind of the slide decks, obviously. And we'll be talking about Google's kind of core web vitals, which shall be, I think, really interesting. So Bartosz is going to be taking more like the approach to kind of go deep into one specific site and just try to kind of optimize it. I wouldn't say on the fly, but more or less that way. Just really point out the real world issues, and I will be kind of going more from a conceptual side and just trying to kind of show different solutions to dealing with core web vitals, or how specifically kind of to optimize for, let's say a layout shift, and what are the main, what has a main impact on layout shift, and how to avoid that. So probably going to go talk about third-party fonts, most likely some stuff around imagery, which is still like a significant, massive thing. I think 60% or something like that right now is image traffic. So huge numbers. So that's going to be good. If you haven't registered yet, make sure. And it's a phenomenal lineup during the entire event. Like really high profile people there, and I think it's going to be ton of stuff being shared. So if you haven't, make sure to register. We will be on, it's a US event, obviously, so US time zone, but we will be on early in the morning. I think it's actually the first session, if I'm not wrong. So yeah, make sure to dial in. It's going to be loads of fun. Back to the 5 hours of technical SEO. I think just to give you a bit of an idea of what's going on, and all the slide decks here are linked. So there were a bunch of topics. One was everything and anything around schema, or schema markup, if you so will. So, like implementation, some conceptual stuff around structured data, a bunch of tools that have been shared. So if you're dealing with anything around schema, this is certainly worth poking around. Then a part that was quite entertaining, and I think Aleda did that actually already a year ago, from like another, or like initial edition a year ago. Not that she did the same, but like something similar, sharing like some SEO nightmares or horror stories, however you want to call it. Yeah, well, I just leave it like that. It's worth poking around as well. It's just sometimes really crazy what people are doing or not doing. So yeah.
Sounds like a very entertaining presentation.
Yeah, it's a very entertaining presentation. Then there was a bit about pagination. Then I think Bartosz and Cindy mainly talked about problems behind indexing, and that kind of ties back to again rendering, JavaScript, and a whole bunch of other things. So that's worth checking out. And yeah, log files was a big topic as well. So a whole bunch of things around crawling, log file analyzers, and auditing, etc. So if you're like into any of those tech topics, this is since the stuff is kind of also here, you can watch it, right? So it has been recorded and published, and then the slide decks are available. That's a really great resource on all things tech SEO that need kind of a refresher right now. Speaking of refresher, if you need a refresher, just shameless self plug here. I did this SEMrush Academy actually already quite a while ago. However, it's still very much relevant. We use it internally a lot for like PK's Academy. So it's free for you. So if you kind of just starting out in tech SEO, you need a kind of primer on some of the things, on some of the concepts. SEMrush Academy is also definitely worth kind of spending it's a full days thing, but it's definitely worth spending a bit of time on. Should give you like a broad overview on some of the kind of, I would say, relevant concepts that you need for like a basic understanding on all things technical SEO. All things technical SEO. If you happen to want to do a workshop, again, same with self-promotion here, then that's going to be SMX Munich, and the reason why I'm saying this now, my image is frozen, I think. I'm not sure if you're still here. Yeah, there was a lag in the connection. Anyways, fair enough. So the reason why I'm mentioning this is like there's still early bird tickets available for the tech SEO workshop that I will be doing at SMX Munich. Again, SMX Munich this time is going to be virtual. So you can do that from wherever you are. It will be in English, so that's probably also worth mentioning. And it's split into 2 days because, trust me, you do not want to spend 8 hours with me on a Zoom. That's not a good idea. So it's going to be 2 days, I believe, 3.5 hours. Yeah, everything and anything from crawling to indexing to web performance. We talk about migrations, international SEO, and whatnot. So the agenda is on the website. If you need a deep dive, a bit more on the advanced side of things, I would probably say, then that's certainly also something you should consider. All right, so that's that. What else do we have? Let's see what else happened. I think one of the things that was also quite nice, and I'm going to just quickly see if I can find the link again, because it was a bit earlier in November, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, let me quickly reshare that as well. Sometimes it's really annoying with all the browser tabs, and then you don't find the right one. But I will manage in a second. All right, there we go. Whoop. Yeah. Quickly zoom in. At the Sitebuld website, actually one of the crawling tools that I think really made significant progress during this year. Added like some really cool features. We use it a lot for schema-based auditing and just visualization, because they have some really cool like crawl maps or crawl map visuals in the tool set. Is one that came up early November, which is what was called website auditing resources, actually. And it's just really, it's a collection, I would probably just call it, with a whole bunch of things and recommendations, again, collecting, stuff around when you have to actually create audits, or need to get familiar with a website, which is probably one thing that you usually start doing once you either kind of win a new client or onboard a new client, or when you start working in-house and you need to revisit or even like establish a strategy. I've got kind of categorized into kind of immediate to advanced. There's some technical SEO video guide by Barry Adams. There's a bunch of tools to kind of visualize stuff, like a massive checkpoint, of course, a list with checkpoints. But of course, that somewhat needs to be tailored. I think I mentioned that already. In my last migration kind of talk, that we like to use migration checklists, but then it still is somewhat needs to be adapted to what you're working against, because, well, if you're not international, then no sense in checking that stuff. So I think that goes without saying, but I think it gives like a huge it gives an idea and then a huge like entry point with different topics on where you should start out with and what you kind of shouldn't forget about. I think this is probably more than anything what it is. So this is really cool and really helpful. A bunch of resources in there that are definitely worth checking out as well. So that was that. What else do we have? Let me quickly flip around here. Yeah, we talked about the Site Explorer for Bing Webmaster Tools already, so that has been sorted. I think the other thing that I'm not going to repeat that we also covered a bit in one of the early episodes was the change or like the confusion around mobile first indexing, mobile only indexing. So if that's a topic that you were expecting for today's episode, I mean, just go back. I think 2 episodes we talked about that and had it covered. One thing that's, well, depends on, today is the 1st of December, which is not entirely November, but still November relevant. I think you all recall that in Search Console, the request indexing feature had been removed. And a lot of people were saying that was around, because, I mean, it happened at the same time when Google was saying, well, look, we had those infrastructure issues. And if you recall, there were like 2 or 3 in a row. So like a lot of people were saying, well, maybe that had to do with it. I think John Mueller, if I'm not wrong, went on record afterwards saying, well, no, this just was not related to each other. Doesn't really matter, though, if you ask me. But at the end of the day, there was a lot of this, well, there were some question marks, I put it that way, if this feature would ever come back. And I think also last episode or something, we said there was a survey on Twitter where you should kind of provide like some feedback and use cases on if you really want it. And it seems that it is actually coming back. So there was a recent update. I think it was just shared today by Barry, if I'm not wrong, Barry Schwartz on Twitter, saying, well, they are actually working on getting this back. So I think not all hope is lost. So I'm not saying it's a November news, but maybe it's related to November happenings. I think this more than anything is what it is. So yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed, that thing is coming back, and I would very much hope so. It's, I think, especially for like short-term experiments and just things that you want to that you want to trigger quickly, so you want to just instantly see what's happening. This is just super helpful, and I'm of course aware, and I think I commented that on a couple of Twitter threads as well. Like you can use other ways to kind of achieve the same goal, but having it in Search Console is just way more handy. And I think that is something that well, if Google as themselves want to kind of have this adoption in Search Console and like want to kind of centralize everything around Search Console, then it would just be wise to keep it there, or well, get it back into it either way, because it's just a very helpful feature, I would say. Which is also quite funny. Speaking of Search Console, I think one of the things the first thing that I saw was people complaining about the fact that the crawl statistics data is not available in an API. Fair enough, I get it, which is true, right? So the data is not there, so you can only use it in the interface. Not saying it will never come, but
right now.
Not right now, which is a bit of a shame, right? If you plug it, as you said, like if you plug it together with other data sources and you have it in your, I don't know, Tableau or Google Data Studio, then it's just nice to have it all at one spot. Also from a client perspective, because then you don't need to kind of like still say, well, look, but there's some data here, or, God forbid, you would then even need to start kind of scraping the data to just have it there. It's just like, I don't think you win much, right? If they kind of expose the data anyways and you publish it, then I think it should also be part of the kind of the API set to just have it at a glance when you do reporting, because that's just really a bit annoying, to be honest, that it's not there. Another thing that happened but that was actually, I think it was end of October, so I'm not bringing it up here, but we haven't talked about it. I think was that Google updated again, like the search quality rater guidelines, which seemed to happen a bit more frequently in the past, or in the recent month, let's put it that way. Anyways, and I think the last emphasis, and I will be sharing the link in the show notes as well. I think Jennifer Slag at the SEM post did as always, a fantastic summary, but they kind of added more emphasis and more examples around what they call needs met, right? So basically, kind of has it achieved what that searcher was either looking for or trying to achieve, right? So had their need been fulfilled? So there was a whole bunch of examples. I think it goes into the same direction, where they kind of still tweaking and changing, like what we call the intent, or understanding the intent and then mapping the intent to the need, or the other way around, right? So that kind of, well, that they're trying to ensure more and more and more that those search results actually fulfill expectations. I think on a broader speaking, that's probably what it really is. So that write-up, especially if you producing content or updating content, and you're therefore exposing stuff obviously to the search results, is probably something that you would also want to have a look on, because that's certainly important if you do kind of keyword structure or keyword strategy, keyword mapping, any of that. I think is it's really worth poking around. So, Dominique, did we forget something? Is there anything else that you had on your list?
I just have one last point maybe in mind. It's not pretty much new, or not regarding news in November, but something I saw during the last weeks, coming back to the COVID topic maybe, and that we are pretty close to Christmas, in terms of storytelling. So what I've seen that this year during the last weeks, in regards to Black Friday, but also in regards to Christmas, that the way of storytelling that year changed pretty much. So whenever I look back to the last years of Christmas campaigns, or like, let's say Q4 campaigns, in terms of content, PR campaigns, but also advertorials, everything was more or less in the same direction and never changed pretty much. And now that this year, I saw a lot of big brands like, I don't know, Zalando, for instance, or Apple, Microsoft, a lot of cosmetic brands, they have they changed their storytelling in a very positive way and giving a positive outlook over to we still need to get in touch with our beloved people, but not in a physical way, but also like sending cards, spend virtual time, do online education, do something productive with your life, and we will hug each other again, let's say. So that's the tonality I see on so many brands at the moment for campaigns in many different ways. That is pretty obvious, I think. So not that surprising in that times we have at the moment, but very interesting how that way of communication and also the way of storytelling changed, and how brands try to give like still positive feelings and try to connect on an emotional level with people in target audience at the moment.
Yeah, but I mean, as you were saying, right? I mean, it kind of also goes back to probably the point of, well, I mean, you can't hide forever, right? I mean, we all kind of getting used to what is happening and like the circumstances that it brings. And I would say it's clear that, you know, we kind of still, even though I just saw today that the kind of two of the big companies, BioNTech and Moderna, kind of applied for the like EU regulations in terms of vaccine, right? I mean, there's still a topic. This is still a topic that's kind of keeps us busy and probably limited in terms of private life and probably some other things. And then again, I mean, on the other hand, as a brand, you cannot just say, well, like I'm so frustrated, I just stop advertising. That's not going to happen either, right? So I think actually it's not unexpected, but what I did not see coming, I have to also admit, I think that's probably more like the agency guy's view then in this case, is that it would ramp up that quickly again. But then again, I mean, some of our clients, right? They had the year of their lives, if you so will. I mean, as sad as that sounds, right? And for those that don't do so well right now, but like, there's some crazy gains if you look at some of the brands that we have been working with over the last 3 to 6 months, right? So, and I guess that said, as you said, like they all like change tonality, but still they need to somewhat market themselves, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and what else should they do, right? I mean, nobody wants to. We all read our news on a daily basis, but who wants to get like negative advertisement or whatever? So it's the only option like having it as a topic makes totally sense, but in a very positive and with a positive outlook. So with a positive way to reach people, because this is something every one of us have in mind at the moment. So I think it's saw a lot of good examples going on at the moment.
Yeah, very, very true. And I mean, at the end of the day, as you said, like it's the tonality might have changed, but still the story is the same, right? They all need to sell, they all need to reach their numbers, and they just potentially need to adopt and change their business model. But at the end of the day, they're still there, right? And so I guess that's settled. And I think what's the difference, though, and I think this is interesting, is that when the first wave hit back in, and I think we saw that ourselves as well, when the first wave hit, people were like getting super cautious because no one would knew. And kind of like budgets and even campaigns and whatnot for some were just completely frozen, right? And that has changed now, even with like this kind of second. I mean, we in Germany have this what they call lockdown light. However, it's somewhat a lockdown, but not fully. Some other countries deal with it differently. But either way, at least people kind of knew what was coming to an extent, and therefore probably I guess like companies, rightfully so, I would say, decided to just continue and push along. And just keep going with it, right? So
Definitely.
yeah. Speaking of positive tonality, actually, I think this is a very good way to finish this week's update. Last week, I think I mentioned that we will be having guests for our Christmas episode, and so that's not the one next week, but the one the week after. And what I mentioned last week is that we will be having Nick Wilson joining us, who is responsible for SEO at Vodafone. The second name next to Nick is also a good friend of PK's, I would say. We go back quite a while. From the Netherlands, Arno Tellemans is going to join us and kind of bring his sometimes contrary views, which I'm really very much looking forward to, not only from SEO, but generally from a search perspective, to the table. So yeah, that shall be fun. And well, there's going to be probably one more that we will be revealing next week, and then that's going to be a fun round, I would imagine. Dominique suggested that we do wine tasting, so let's see how that goes. I'm not overly sure that that's a good idea, but why not? It's the last episode. I blocked my calendar afterwards, so maybe we just do a wine tasting.
I mean, we have just 1 hour, right? What should happen?
What's the worst that can happen, right? Maybe it kind of is not going to be an hour, but maybe some more, but we shall see. So yeah, let's lock that in. So wine tasting it is, and a whole bunch of kind of questions, chats, and thoughts around what this year had in store for the guys, but also what's going to happen in their opinion next year. So I think 2021 is going to be interesting in a lot of regards. So that shall be very, very much interesting. So mark your calendars. I think it is in 2 weeks from now. So basically, well, the 15th of December. And yeah, we definitely are very much looking forward to that one. However, for this week, I think we are done. It's already 5 in Germany, so half a working day left. More or less, at least this is how it feels right now. We wish you a fantastic remainder of the week. And then, so Dominique, what's the topic for next week, actually? I am so unprepared, you know.
Next week, I wanted to share some experience and some cases of, or a bit about like the perfect content marketing workflow and processes. So a bit about like handling stakeholders, but also which is like the typical, or which should be like the typical steps in the proper content marketing workflow. So
fantastic. So content marketing workflows, it's going to be for next week. So we will be back at the same place, same time on the 8th of December. And that's it for today.
Cool.
Cheers. Bye-bye.